Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Step Up Network's second birthday virtual celebration. It's hard to believe that this day 2 years ago, myself and Ben and a couple of others were starting out on this journey that has taken us to a number of different cities across the UK and across the country, virtually as well with our virtual events. So for today, if I can get the next slide, we're going to go through what we're going to do today. So for the first 20 minutes, it's myself and Ben will chip in as well. We're going to look back at the last 2 years. We'll do some welcomes and introductions and what have we achieved this year. Then we're going to invite a number of people who've engaged with Step Up and have used Step Up as a vehicle to drive their own success. And we're going to hear some stories in terms of the success stories, how they've engaged with Step Up, how they found it useful, coming to events, and the advice they would give to other people looking to step up. Then at 11 o'clock, we'll have Ben, our founder and CEO, who you can see on the screen right there. He is now going to take us through the what's next for Step Up. Because looking back at the last 2 years, we have accomplished a lot. It's what's next, what are we going to do, how are we going to change and offer different things and improve our offer to ensure that everybody who engages with our network gets value. And then at 10 past 11, we'll finish the event and our call to action. So looking back at this year, Adam, if you can pop in the next one for me, please. So I didn't see this slide. This is a new slide that Ben dropped in on.
Yeah, this has just been added in very last minute. This is the power that, Marion, if you think 2 years ago AI was a thing, but not in the way it was. But we asked it to create a birthday image for us, and this is what it came up with, which we thought was a very cute addition. So you'll see it on our socials today. So feel free to share it and use the hashtag SteppingUpSaturday as well. Even if you're not watching live, we'd lovely to hear what your experiences of Step Up are. So thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you, Elaine, for hosting as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing all of the hashtags, because obviously with the hashtags on Twitter, we're able to track. So even if it's not, if you're watching this back on our YouTube channel, as Ben said, we're able to see the engagement. So looking back, one thing I always forget to do when I do things like this is actually introduce myself. So I'm Elaine Hayes. I'm one of the founding members of a Step Up Network. I am currently the media director. And also on screen, we've got Ben, our founder and CEO. And later on, we're going to hear from a number of educators who've also engaged with our network. So looking back, our introduction, Adam, next slide, please. So who are we? Our organization, we're a grassroots network. This came from a Twitter chat, WhatsApp chats, where we thought actually there's a need in the education landscape for a network for people who are stepping up, because leadership can be very, very lonely. When you're moving into a new job, a new environment with heightened expectations, because you're now a middle leader, you're now a senior leader, who can you turn to for help? So it's our grassroots network company. It's turned into a community interest company, CIC, and a social enterprise. And we work with new and aspiring leaders in education so that they can step up into their new roles and thrive. Our mission and values, very, very simple. So in particular, if you look at the words that are in bold and that are italics, they are powerful words: to empower our diverse community with empathy, passion, integrity to make the step up that they wish to make. For some people, that might be even to get into teaching, become a leader in their own classroom, become a curriculum leader, become a pastoral leader, become a senior leader, and even into headship. So across all of our network, we've got a number of people who are in these. We've got educators who engage with the network who've successfully made that step up and who we continue to support. And then our vision and priorities. We want to ensure that education and leadership is diverse, that it's reflective of the pupils that we serve in our schools and communities across the UK. That's inclusive and flexible. That responds to the needs of the sector, but by positively disrupting the leadership elements that are there. Just because it's been done like this before doesn't mean that it has to be done like this again. And given seeing the image of the AI 2 years ago, ChatGPT wasn't there. This whole idea of AI wasn't something that was to the forefront of educators' mind. We want to develop that strong talent pipeline because we know there's people who are not necessarily stepping up to leadership, stepping up to headship. And we need those people in our community, those leaders, to address the gaps in knowledge and skills. So by creating a community, so using our network events, using our blogs, using our website, using our coaching offer, that those who do step up have places to go, can ask those questions that you mightn't be able to ask within your school because people are looking to you that you should know the answer. So these are our visions and priorities. This is our golden circle. We start with our why. So as I've said, leadership can be really lonely, scary, unsupported. It can be untrained, underdeveloped. It's not diverse. It can negatively impact on your well-being. And there's a lot of people who don't necessarily have that confidence to step up, or they see those in leadership saying, no, I could never do that. And actually, they have those key skills that they can do. It doesn't have to be this way. It shouldn't have to be this way. Our 5 ways of working. So we are connecting where we've got our events. So we've had events across the country, and we've got a number of virtual events that are coming up later in the year as well. Our leadership directory that's on our website, our coaching, the collaboration, our partnerships and collaboration. So we're going to hear from one of our collaborators later on as well. Our website, which has a huge amount of information on it in terms of our coaching directory, our blogs, all the information about how we can support you as a network. Our blogs, newsletters, our social media, and networking, everything that we do. There are 5 ways of working. And then our what? We are a leadership network for new leaders. We want to ensure that the barriers that are there are taken away, or that they're lessened, that people can, instead of seeing barriers as something that they can't get over, that we can help them go around, go through, or try and reduce that barrier. We focus on the barriers and development, but also the leadership, the well-being of our leaders in our classroom. Because as Patrick Otley O'Connor, who's one of our speakers this year, always says, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first. If you don't have that, then how can you serve the people that you are leading? So looking back at this year, what have we achieved? So this time last year, we had our first birthday celebration, which when we look back at the impact that we have had, it's quite amazing. Ben, if you could come in for about the first birthday, because you actually hosted that event.
Yeah, I know, because I remember there was quite a few illnesses that struck our team that week. So we actually held it on our actual first birthday as well. But our actual birthday is the 10th of June. So we're holding this pretty much 2 years to the day of our launch event, because our launch event was on Saturday. So last year, we did our virtual first birthday event on our actual birthday, 10th of June. We had 20 minutes at the beginning where we looked back and looked at what Step Up had achieved in 1 year. And like Elaine said, it was really amazing to think of how much we did achieve in 1 year. Then we had a keynote speaker, Hannah Wilson, who I'm sure many of you know, from Diverse Educators. Diverse Educators got an event today. They did invite us, but unfortunately it was a clash. So good luck. I hope the event goes well to the Diverse Ed team. But Hannah spoke about networking and the importance of networking. And that's going to be really relevant for when we come to the final part of today's event, when I talk about moving forward, what we're offering. The clip specifically of Hannah's talk, she did a keynote for about 20 minutes and a Q&A, is on our YouTube channel as well as the full event. And then we looked forward to this year, and it was interesting. I think there's been a lot of reflection this year behind the scenes with the Step Up team as to where we go next. So I think originally this event today that we're doing today, we weren't going to do a second birthday event, and I'm so glad we have, because it's provided a lot of reflection, but also a lot of opportunity as well. So I would definitely say go to the YouTube channel, go and have a look and see and maybe compare the difference between last year and this year.
Thanks. I think I was actually one of those victims of illness for that birthday celebration last year. And then if you go on to the next slide, Adam, you can see actually from 2 years ago, our launch event, which was myself and Ben. Again, I think that was affected by illness as well, because I do remember having a massive coughing fit right at the end, just as we were finishing off. And that's where we launched, looking at all of our leaders and the people that have engaged with us. So on the right, you can see one of our posters where we've had all of these educators have given their time to us and shared their experiences with us. Looking at there's some amazing names, and look back at our YouTube channel, because all of our live events are available on YouTube, and they're a great way of dipping in and out of looking at if there's something, a question that you're asking for, a question that you're not sure of. Have a look at our YouTube channel, and there's generally a clip there that will actually help you to answer that question. So then we've had a number of events this year. The bottom right-hand corner is our Leeds events, which was again another new city for us to be. We've had our our Leadership Day in the Midlands this year, which was a really, really well attended event, hosted in Christine's school, one of our vice chair school. Again, very joyful day. Very much about connection, very much about engaging and making those connections, being able to ask those questions, and have, as you can see in the top right hand corner, the coffee chat and connection ones that we've had as well in London. It is very much about connecting, bringing people together who have a shared goal, a shared focus, that they're able to have those discussions, listen to some fantastic facilitators as well, and engage. So we will have a look at all of our events, and as Ben said, we're in the process of figuring out what's next for us. We've done a number of virtual and a number of in-person events. I think we've done a number of virtual events on things like job interviews, leadership wellbeing. We've got some leadership wellbeing with Chris Carter coming up this term as well. So again, have a look at our social. You can see all of the different events. But I think the bottom left-hand corner is a fabulous quote that was shared at our Leadership Day. The only person you're destined to become is the person you decide to be. So I think when we talk about our call to action later on in this, what is it that you want? What is it that you want to become? Find the people who are in that space, and that's where Step Up can come in, where there's a lot of our community are already in those positions or in leadership roles. Connect with them, have those questions, have those chats, and then go and be the person that you're destined to be. Next slide. So numbers, I'm a maths teacher, so I love this slide in terms of numbers. We have had over 20 of our community members have gained promotion. So those are people who come to our events or engage with the virtual events, and they've gone, applied, and been successful. A number of them have actually mentioned Step Up in their interviews. We've had over 9,000 views on our website. We've had more than 10 events, including social events. So we've had some smaller social coffee and chats events. We've also had our more formal leadership days. 100% satisfaction rate for event attendees, which I think is really, really important. When we put our list of speakers together, we have never gone to speakers and said, no, you must talk about this. And for every single in-person event, things have just dovetailed, have naturally dovetailed, where the sessions, you come out of one session, go into another, and the material is relevant. It's engaging. You always, for me personally, I always come home with something that I've learned, something new that I've learned. So we've had over 300 people attend our events, and my personal call to action for those who are watching this live or who are engaged with this after the event, bring along somebody, bring a friend. Who are you going to help step up? Who are you going to share this massively successful organization with? We've got over 6,000 followers on our social media, 20 volunteers, and we've had 6 webinars so far. And I think the quotes that are there, I'm pleased to share I'm going to be a faculty leader in the new startup school. I reference Step Up in both my application and my interview. And then the other one, in terms of after your pep talk at the event, I'm pleased to share that I've gained promotion to assistant head teacher. Who's going to be next? We want to hear those stories, those members of our community who engage with us, know stories, let us know, and we want to celebrate those successes as well.
And I would say, Elaine, sorry to jump in, yeah, they're probably the stories that we don't always hear as much. We can get the metrics and the numbers really easy, but the stories we really want to hear, as Elaine said, is who's next or who has stepped up. And often that happens sort of coincidentally when we're at events and we're just talking. There's a great story about one of our panelists today, I'm not going to reveal who, at our London Leadership Day last year, ended up sitting on the same table as someone else who had also got promotion to the same school, who was then sat next to someone else who actually worked at that school. And that was just complete coincidence. And I think those little stories like that are the ones that we really love hearing, as well as obviously seeing the numbers as well. But I think those stories, as Elaine said, probably they matter to us a little bit more because it's just really nice to hear the successes that everyone has. So yeah, please do shout from the rooftops and celebrate yourselves.
Thank you, Ben. I think the next slide, if we look at the different awards, we've had a number of different awards that we have gained, and they're all there on the screen. And I know Ben has also had a personal award that Adam collected on his behalf. So we are being recognised as an enterprise, as an organisation that is doing a huge amount of work in the area. So we've had different nominations and different awards that we've also won. So our other work, we've got a number of different partnerships and collaborations with organisations, Women Ed, Diverse Ed, Male Childcare Teaching, who we're going to hear from Claudio later on. We've had our coaching network. All of our coaches, we have vetted. So either that we've personally been coached by them, or that we know that the quality is there in terms of ensuring that those who engage your organisation are getting the best that's out there. Our membership offer development is going to be in progress, and our diversity and inclusion work, where we are actively looking at ensuring that all of our events have diversity across the speakers, ensuring that those voices that may not necessarily be heard are being heard. And how do we ensure that those barriers that are there are either being eroded, demolished, or we work around them? So that's all about our organisation at the moment. The next element of this is to introduce all of our wonderful panelists who you're going to hear about. So bear with us, I'm trying to get their intros up because otherwise. So we have an Adam who's working in the background. A big shout out to Adam, who is doing all of the tech elements for us today. We have Mabina Ahmed, who is a Step Up launch event speaker and also an assistant head teacher. Good morning, Mabina. We've got Nadira Khan, who presented at our London Leadership Workshop and is also another assistant head teacher. Good morning, Nadira. We've got Sean Rees, who I believe is a history teacher. He can correct me in a second. Who has attended our events. He's a middle leader and also is a Teach First ambassador. I've already mentioned Claudio Cicera, who is one of our partners. He has been to, I think you've been to nearly all of our in-person events.
Yep.
He's also presented for us and is head of diversity and inclusion at Male Childcare and Teaching Jobs. And the last person on our panel is Joanna Tompkins, who's a Step Up attendee and an associate assistant head teacher. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
So I'll start, and there's no particular order in terms of the questions, but the first thing I'd like to kind of dive into is how have you engaged with Step Up to date? And what we might do is, I'm not sure if everybody's screen is the same as mine. If I go to Mabina first, how have you engaged with Step Up to this?
Of course. Good morning. It's really lovely to see everyone. I know I've met you in person, or I know you through other people, and it's just really lovely to see everyone. I've engaged with Step Up in different ways. So I was just thinking about Uta, actually, who I had a coffee morning with in Clapham. That was one of the Step Up network events, which was sort of a low-key, more intimate setting. I've come to leadership days where I've attended talks and sort of networking events as well. So those are the ways I've engaged, but also online through X, etc. Sorry, I hope I'm not taking everyone else's points. Let me hand over to someone else, though. I don't know if it's the same question to other people, Elaine.
Yeah, if I can come to you about how you engage with Step Up.
Morning, everyone. I hope you're well. Great to see you. So I've engaged in Step Up by being a speaker at their London leadership event in February. And although I was absolutely petrified, and I did bring my husband along because I said to him, "Oh, you'll be the only one in the room with me." And then I got a surprise visit from my head teacher. I very much owe it to Ben for emailing me in June 2024 going, "I think you'll be really good at doing this." And I was very unconvinced. But having been a speaker, and since being a speaker, I have been promoted to assistant head teacher. I'm not sure if it was my absolutely unapologetic, authentic me giving the presentation to my head teacher in a room full of, I think Mabina was there. It was absolutely amazing. So that's one of the ways I've engaged.
Wonderful, thank you. Sean?
Yes, and again, really great to see you all. Well, for me, I first heard about Step Up in July 2023, and I was going through Teach First Great Ambassador, and I really picked up a flyer. And it sounds somewhat cliched, but without a doubt, the perfect timing, because at this point, I was looking at sort of doing this internal CPD in my school, whole school CPD, getting TLR3 as well. And then when I found out that Step Up existed and that there was an opportunity to network with other leaders or aspiring leaders, not too far away from me in Luton, because I went to 2 leadership days in London. Really, really great timing. Like you, Elaine, as well, I've also mentioned Step Up when it came to interviews, and really, really glad to be saying that from September, I'll be leading a new humanities team at a new startup in West London. So I'm really, really excited about that. And without a doubt, not just the sort of pedagogy or the actual leadership techniques, but just like the motivation and the sort of confidence as well to do that has come from Step Up, without a doubt.
Great, thank you. And I think there's a couple of questions coming up that we've kind of covered already a little bit, but we'll tweak it. Claudia, I have to say, publicly, Claudia is one of our biggest supporters in terms of events and being there. How have you engaged with Step Up? You can go through your story. I won't spoil it.
Yeah, it's. The way I came across your organization was quite unexpected, to be honest with you, and even the way that then we followed up engaging with you. I was not expecting that we would reach that extent in a way. So I originally came across Ben because as part of our organization's visions of promoting and championing the role of men working in education, I wanted to build a case study on Ben, because I came across his profile on one of the social media platforms. I can't quite remember which one, but I learned that he transitioned from a different industry to the education industry. So to me, it was gold. It was music to my ears. So I really wanted to have him on our platform. So we engaged in a case study first. And then it was following that, obviously, we stayed in touch and I got to learn more about the Step Up network. The more he was explaining your visions, ethos, commitment to leadership and supporting not just established leaders, but aspiring leaders, and ultimately your commitment to diversity and inclusion, that really resonated, not just with us as an organization, but also to me personally. It really struck a chord. So I knew from day one that I really wanted to get involved with your organization. So ever since we've engaged in a number of ways, from sponsoring some of your events to engaging in public speaking there as well, exhibiting. We've really tapped into your audiences in a variety of ways, such as contributing to your blog articles, newsletters. We've collaborated on social media posts, and that was really incredible experience because not only it allowed us to deliver our message as an organization, but as I briefly mentioned, also on a personal level, your commitment is something that really resonates with my own personal experience, and I'm sure we're going to delve into that a little bit more in detail as our conversation goes through. But it is essentially your commitment to support aspiring leaders and established leaders with skills and tools that they may have not necessarily got throughout their career is something that really I'm passionate about. So I couldn't be any more grateful, to have engaged with your community, and I've met wonderful people throughout this journey. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks. I think, and it just flashed up on the screen there. If you want to know a little bit more about male childcare teaching jobs and our partnership, if you go there. Last one, Joanna.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see all of you this morning. So I was at Step Up's first in-person event in the Midlands, where it was our Step Up Networking Leadership event. And I was really lucky to be sat opposite Nimish Ladd and sat next to Miriam Hussein. And I was really stuck in a rut at the time about leadership and where I saw myself going as a drama specialist and feeling not seen in the field of leadership in my subject area. So it was really fascinating to be sat opposite Nimish, who's talked me through the assistant head teacher interview situation for his trust. And then Miriam said that she would offer to be my mentor and to have talks with me about leadership. From that, I decided that I wanted to become a faculty lead in a new startup, which is the quote that you might have seen at the beginning. I think that was mine, where I mentioned Step Up in both my interview and in my letter as well. And now I've been promoted in that trust again to Associate Assistant Head of Teaching and Learning. So I really value the work that Step Up do, and I think it's really led me to where I am.
Thanks, Simone. I think it's really nice to, as Ben, like I've said, it's really nice to hear those stories, because obviously we can collect the metrics very easily. You can go on to, I refuse to call it X, but it's still Twitter to me. You go on to Twitter, you can see the numbers, engaged on LinkedIn, but obviously those personal stories are what we want to hear. I think question for kind of Mobeen and Nadira, because you've both and Claudia, you've all spoken at a Step Up event. What made you want to step up and speak at one of our events? Do I start with Claudio?
Yeah, sure. So with me, it's something that's been in my personal development plans for a very long time. I really wanted to gain a little bit more confidence in speaking, public speaking, and it's something that I necessarily needed to learn how to for the role that I'm currently covering, which is mainly advocacy work. So I really felt like from day one, the moment I engaged with you guys, I really felt like you were a really inclusive and diverse community. So I really felt comfortable engaging in that sort of activity with you, which I didn't necessarily feel in other communities and network for various reasons, because of the fact that I come from a different country, for example, or because I am part of a minority group within the early years industry, which is the area that I work in at the moment. So for various reasons, not often I feel very comfortable doing that. And when I came across your organization and I've noticed, the range of diverse speakers that you have on board and the opportunities that you provide and the support as well, not just professional, but also emotional, to engage in these sort of activities, I really felt like a home, very homely environment in a way, but at the same time professional. So that's what really made me want to engage with you, because it's something that I truly believe in. And I think it's key to leadership, providing everybody with the opportunity to have a voice in the industry and share what they're passionate about. So that's something that really resonated with my personal values.
Really, thank you. Nadira, I know at the London event, it was, you were brought your husband along for support. What made you actually reach out and say, I'm going to speak at this event?
I'm going to be really honest, because this is what is. So it was a conversation with Ben. Ben and I had met through another kind of platform. And, he said, I think you'd be really good. And I thought, well, you've asking me about 6 months in advance. I'm going to sign up. And then as we led up to it, I wanted to speak about my experience, because I think, it's what you said, Elaine. Leadership is lonely. There isn't a lot of training in it. It's trying to navigate something that someone hasn't written a book about yet. And I'm sure there are now more people out there like Sam Strickland and other people who write leadership books within teaching. But at the time that I was going through it, I felt really alone, and I wanted people to know the realities of what it means to become a leader. And then also, as a woman from an ethnic minority, I really resonate with the fact that coming to your events, it's so diverse, and I can see people in my position. And one of the things I'm really passionate about, and the things that I say to kids, is you can't become something unless you can see it. And that's what I'm a very tangible person. I'm a very much, if I can't see it, I can't become it. But at your events, there were people to, like Joanna said, there was people to talk to. I got to speak to Hannah Wilson. To me, she was this big thing that didn't exist and wasn't tangible. And then I got to speak to her. And there are other people like Patrick O'Connolly, who is actually at Manchester, but I've met on Twitter and then met in person. And it was really weird, like to connect it. But essentially, I want people to listen to other people's authentic experiences and be able to learn or take something away, or be able to not think the unthinkable, like, oh, I couldn't do that. And I tell you, 6 months before the event, I was like, I think even the night before the event, I think Ben thought I'd called him to say I wasn't coming, but I think I called him to say I had a technical issue. And I did drag moral support. I did need someone that I knew that was there. But you can do it. And, you know, we're all living proof, regardless of how many interviews you do. I think this is more to like people listening. It might not be your first interview, but through networks like this, you get to coach and train and get advice. And often a lot of it is free. You know, I'm happy to speak to anyone. I'm sure Mubin is happy to speak to anyone. We're really happy because we want other people to aspire and develop.
Yeah, I think I want to jump in a couple of points. I think being able to see it is so important, especially, you know, for us as well as adults, but then also for the peoples that we serve. So if they don't see people like them in those leadership roles, then how can they aspire to be those? I think, you know, coming along to any of the events, you know, there's a warm welcome. There's always time for connection. There's always time for chat. There's always those connections. Like, people are so giving of their time, because we do try and develop those people, develop those connections, and they're really important to us as an organization. Because if you don't have those, if you don't know where the answer is, how are you going to get it? And also, it can also give you context to, you know, when you're in a situation that's not really, really good, you feel like you're the only one going through it. And actually, there's probably others who've gone through it, or who have gone through it and come out the other side, or have been unsuccessful in interviews, and they've changed their interview tactics and looked at different things. And, you know, sometimes it does take stepping into an event and actually listening to those stories to help gain that perspective. And sometimes it was also gaining confidence. You know, I think that's really, really important. But you were one of our original event speakers. What's to get one of our...
I'm really sorry, the connection broke a little bit. What was the question?
Why did you want to come and speak at one of our events?
Okay, so like Nadira has mentioned, I think leadership is a really lonely journey. And what I found when I started networking and reaching out, I found allyship, I found kinship, and I found people similar to me. And actually, Nadira, I can one-up you. 2 years ago, when I had to do a talk, I thought I was all ready, and I had a moment where I had to go away and have a complete cry, come back, sort myself out and say, right, I'm going to do this. And I think sometimes stepping up can feel scary, but if you do it once, you overcome that. It's almost like a mental hurdle, and, you know, you can do it again. And I think Ben and the team made me feel so comfortable. All my questions were answered. They were so supportive. That first step was really critical, actually, for the rest of my journey, because I had major imposter syndrome at that point. I needed to overcome it. And 2 years later, I'm sitting here and I'm 1 year into assistant headship. So that was a critical juncture for me where everything sort of changed. And it was like a standout moment.
I think, yeah, it's so powerful in terms of taking that first step is the hardest. And actually, I think public speaking is the number one fear that people have. But in terms of, you know, anybody who's listening right now and has a story to share, or feels that actually they have something that they want to put a voice to, they want other people to know, please get in touch with us through our socials, through our email, through our website, because we want to facilitate that. We want to hear people's stories. You know, there is people whose voices are typically not heard. We want to make sure that those voices are heard. Moving on, we've had a number of success stories in terms of using Step Up as helping to actually step up. We'll go to Sean first, because I know you're moving to a new startup school. Can you talk about your journey and how Step Up helped you to make that step up?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned before, towards the end of my trainee year with Teach First and my school in Luton, my current school that is, I was just about to take TLR, things like that. But to, especially for primary and secondary education, we have like classroom teachers and middle leaders and senior leaders. There may be good networks for each of those sort of levels or each of those people. But the idea of Step Up sounds like there's a sort of network for that transition to be made, right? So rather than just have, this is the network for teachers, this is the network for middle leaders, this is, as its name suggests, it's a network for people who want to be in this process, be in this transition where they go into middle leadership. And that's exactly what I was in my career at that point. So really good timing. And I also relocated for teaching. So I'm from Manchester, and I used to work at schools in Manchester, some in Yorkshire when I studied in Hull. But when I moved to Luton, I didn't really know much about Luton, Bedfordshire. Didn't really know much about London either. But because of the networking days in London, I just got to meet so many different teachers. So for me, that was a really great opportunity to do more of that networking. And because we have so many different speakers and so many different types of leadership events, it's just paid off so well. So, for example, when I mentioned that I'm going to join this new startup, it's all through provision. So they're going to go from reception all the way up to year 13. And because of those events, and also those sort of informal kind of chats we've had, or when we've had sort of opportunities to have like a coffee or go for like a meal after one of the events, and I've been speaking to people like Ben, who works in a primary school, well, that just makes me so much more confident and so much more knowledgeable about what primary education is like. And so when it did come to that interview, and which is for this all through school, I could then with confidence and with ease really just talk about what history is like at reception, or what history is like in year 6, or just talk about how sort of secondary education can be improved based on how sort of schools perform when the children are between reception and year 6. So there's that too, like the range of speakers, the range of networks has really paid off for me as well.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to the moving into a new area, having moved countries to come and teach. And I understand myself in terms of the power of networks and having those people, because having not been educated in the system, coming into a brand new system, it was completely foreign to me. So it took me a while to even get to that. So I understand the movement. I think, having our combination of in-person, and we have looked to try and put the in-person events around the country. So we're Manchester in our first year. We were in Leeds, we were in London, we're in Wolverhampton. So, and then between those and the virtual events, it means that we do give those connections. Joanna, would you like to? I know when we met, I think I was at the very first day on crutches, our very first event in Birmingham. Can you share your story? Because it's an interesting story, having where you were at that event and where you are now.
Yeah, of course I can. So at that point, I was a lead teacher of drama. So I wasn't yet head of faculty. I was just sort of in charge of my own little department in our new startup school in Birmingham. So we are now 4 years into our process, but at the time we were only 2 years in. And I just felt like I couldn't see anybody in my school or in my previous school who was in my subject area who had stepped up to that level of leadership that I was aspiring to. I've always been a massive pedagogy, teaching and learning nerd, really. And I've always craved that knowledge and how that can inspire other subject areas in the schools. So I always knew in my head, one day I would like to be in charge of teaching and learning in a school, but how do I get there? And I came across Step Up on X. It's definitely Twitter at the time. And I saw that this event was happening, which was the leadership event in the West Midlands in Birmingham. And I thought, I've never heard of this organisation before. Turns out it's because you were brand new. And maybe I should go and meet some people and network. And I was really nervous to go into a room full of leaders when I felt like I was only a lead teacher of drama and I needed to take a big step up. But everybody was so friendly. Everybody was so welcoming. And I just spoke to everybody. I just tried to have a conversation with everybody in the room. To gain their knowledge and their experiences to help to inspire me. I never expected to be spoken through an interview process or to have somebody offer to mentor me or any of those things. That was just a perk of talking to people and getting to know everybody there. And And then I went on my journey. The job came up to be head of creative industries, which was in charge of a lot of different areas of study in the school. And I thought, I'm going to try. I'm going to do it. I've spoken to all of these people. I've gained so much experience. I'm just going to apply. And then I did get the job. And then after that, the associate assistant head of teaching and learning came up, and I just started taking more whole school opportunities. And then I recently went to the West Midlands event that was in the primary school, and got to hear from Kezia Featherstone, who, let's be honest, is a rock star of education. And it was really cool. It was really fun to just sit and listen to her version of leadership, which is so different to the other versions of leadership that I've seen before. She calls it punk leadership. And then also to sit in with Kiran Saty and hear how she's inspiring the young girls that she works with to aspire for more. That's my journey.
I think it's with Kezia, definitely leadership takes different forms, and there is no such thing. Like, very much in education, there's this idea that you have to take every rung in the ladder and climb that ladder. And actually, in reality, leadership is more like a jungle gym. Sometimes you have to go across, sometimes you go down, sometimes you can skip levels. So for me personally, I skipped the head of department level. I went straight from being second department to an assistant head, which was a massive step up, and only for the fact that I had networks to lean on. That could have been a disaster. But I think it's really, really important, being with people, making those connections, being brave and coming to one of our events. And having those conversations. I can guarantee that you will go away having learned something new, or learn something like, that's a really good idea. There's I'll give you some warrior, and having made a new connection. Mabina, I know you've stepped up into senior leadership as an assistant head. Do you want to take us through your journey?
Yeah. So one of my values is I'm okay with being quite vulnerable, which is why I've openly admitted to crying in today's event. So my middle leadership journey was interrupted by a spell of illness, and I think after that I lost a lot of confidence in myself. But I also started working very, very hard to make up for lost ground, and I arrived at a point where I was working such long hours to make a difference in my school, but felt quite isolated from other heads of department or assistant heads, or I couldn't see that next step up. And like some of you have mentioned, if you can't see it, you don't believe you can do it. And to my knowledge at the moment in my current network, there are 3 women that look like me that are in leadership. And that is something that means we're still breaking ground in that area. And what Step Up enabled me to do is have conversations with lots and lots of different people. And one of my values is also allyship, so where people are underrepresented. So Claudio, I really love your organisation. Women Ed is championed massively, but what about the Black male educators or male educators that are minority? I work with John I, and I know he won one of your aprons at the last event. So I'm always seeking to represent and pull a chair up at the table for people. And what I had the courage to do is actually go for an assistant headship interview. I didn't get it in my setting, but from all of the conversations I've had with people, I knew enough that actually I felt like I could go for another role. And the reason I'm telling this story is because when I did go for that role, there was another candidate that walked in, and I looked at him and I thought, me and him would make this SLT team diverse. I wonder if he's going to get the role. Later that day, when the head teacher called me to tell me that I had actually got through the process and she was offering me assistant headship, she also mentioned there were 42 other candidates. And I think that was a real moment for me and John I, who I now work with at the same school. And forging forward, we are now about to launch a project called Elevate, which is about raising attainment of Black Caribbean students. So that journey in terms of allyship, in terms of representing those that aren't seen or maybe don't have voices, all of that originated from those conversations where I could be really comfortable with all sorts of educators that I can see on the screen in front of me, but I can recall as well from leadership events. So that's the kind of journey I've been on. I'm 1 year in now. and it's not been easy. And if you want to hear more about that, come and see me on 21st of June at the next Step Up event.
I love the plug for the next event. The way you slotted that in there, it was brilliant. Nadira, do you want to talk about your leadership journey? Because I know you've had an interesting journey.
Yeah, so if you remember, Elaine, I think I was at 30 interviews for assistant headship, and actually I was at the moment, I think it's quite important to throw in the towel. I was really exhausted from being a pastoral leader for 10 years. I had all these additional responsibilities, and I just felt like I was working hard. And I wasn't, for me, it was getting to that next stage, but I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the know-how to make an impactful interview. I didn't necessarily know how, like, my personal statement will be impacting. And just like Mubina, I was turning up to these interviews where I've been told, oh yeah, 71 people applied and congratulations, you've made it down to the last 8. But it's really just gut-wrenching when you don't get down to getting the last 1. So I just thought, where was I going wrong? But I think, and again, like many of us here, like speaking to people, not giving up and actually connecting and refinding your purpose gives you the, experiencing my colloquialism, just kick up the backside to keep going, because not only do you owe it to yourself to keep going, but you owe it to the future generation to keep going. And that's my biggest thing. And a little bit like Mubina calls it vulnerability. I call it being authentic. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was a hard 5 years from the pandemic, and just not knowing what direction you were going to go in after the pandemic. Because at the pandemic, I decided, 2020, I couldn't do any more pastoral leadership. I had given my all when I had learned everything, and I had trained loads of people. And like 5 years on, there's about 3 members of staff who say to me, oh, if it wasn't for you and, your pep talks at school and your like coaching on how to answer these questions, I won't be here. And I just think that's so important to give. So in terms of my own leadership journey, it's not been a linear one at all. It's come with its own hurdles of imposter syndrome, vulnerability, can I do this, to then changing the narrative. And that's what we all need to do. We all need to change the narrative, and we are going to have bad days, but it's about connecting with people who understand those bad days and having the empathy, and then picking yourself up and going again, because there's no way I'm going to let anyone get in my way of doing what I need to do now. And I'm sure there are other people here that will support me to do what I need to do. And that's, you need to find your people, or you need to find your tribe. I'm not sure what the saying is, but find the people that will hold you up and will, allow you to lick your wounds and cry and be what you need to do and vent. And then the same people will also stand there and pick you up.
I think that's really, really important. It's having those connections. If you don't have them, then who can you turn to when the chips are down? And it's really, really important to get that perspective. Having, had failures, having people that, been in those shoes, have then successfully gone on and done it. I know we've really spoken a lot of leadership journeys that are very much middle and senior, but also like a lot of our events, we've had a number of early career teachers. Like Sean has come along as an early career teacher to our events and has taken something from it. I want to go through, Claudia. Your journey is very, very different to everybody, because obviously you're working in an industry with early years where there's barriers around males being involved with early years. Can you talk me through a little bit of your journey?
Yes, of course. So I just to start with, I'd love to highlight that I completely fell into the industry. So I was never planning to work in the education industry when I moved to the UK. Completely fell into it. I came across somebody who was already working in a nursery, was a friend of a friend, and he recommended me that I would apply for a job there. So little did I know that I would end up falling in love with the role. So I started out as an apprentice, worked my way up to a managerial level quite quickly, to be honest with you. Probably a bit too quickly, I would say. So within 3.5 years to 4 years, more or less, I was already a nursery manager. And I definitely felt like that the transition to becoming a manager was quite rushed, mostly due to poor retention rates that the industry at the time was facing. So, and sometimes I felt like that being part of a minority group sometimes facilitated that as well, in a way. So at times I really felt like, despite, I had like wonderful managers working alongside me, sometimes I really did feel that I was isolated in that leadership role, and I started to like question my own abilities, and there's lots of like self-doubt taking place. I'm sure some of the leaders out there will resonate with that as well. And I was never like the networking kind of person. When I was working in a nursery, I remember like at some point owning my own nursery as well for a couple of years. And even then I wasn't really like networking outside of my four walls, mainly because I wasn't aware of any networks that were out there. So I really wish that we had something like the Step Up network back then, because looking at what I'm experiencing now, being part of your network, I think would have made like my leadership journey back in the days much easier. I've learned a lot of things since I've joined your network in terms of like getting different perspectives from different educational areas. So again, when I was working in early years, I was never really networking with people from the primary and secondary sector. And I've learned since joining you, like a lot of the struggles that leaders, educators, students are experiencing in the primary and secondary areas. So in early years, we've got that magic power where we can tackle those issues early on. Obviously, we all know that first 5 years of a child development are the most essential ones in terms of everything, really. So, looking at the struggles that some of the leaders, some of the schools are experiencing in the sector, through getting to network with your community members, really helped me to shape our policies here at Male Childcare and Teaching Jobs as well. So just to give you like a practical example, I networked with a couple of members of your communities, and there seemed to be quite a regular pattern in the way schools are now, or back in the days last year, were experiencing issues with misogynistic behavior from male students. So that's something that really opened my eyes in the way we are running our organizations, and I managed to take home a lot of golden nuggets from your community members that helped us shape ultimately some training courses for the members of our community. So, for example, how to tackle gender stereotypes early on, because we all know that research shows that they start forming from a very early age, and by age 7 they're fully formed, which is crazy. So yeah, I managed to access quite a lot of interest research as well from some of your community members. And again, it was all about like connecting with new people from different locations in the UK as well, because obviously something that might work in my local area might not work in the next borough or in the next city. So I really found a lot of value in getting to know different practices and different needs, not just from educators, but also from their students, their pupils, but also the communities that they serve. So really eye-opening, and I really wish I had something like that when I was stepping up in my leadership journey.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got a couple of questions from the chat and from the live stream on YouTube. So everybody can just feel free to jump in. For someone who lacks confidence, what's the best way to network with other educators? And what questions would you suggest that we ask to start conversations about leadership?
Can I start? Is that all
go
right?
for it, Joanne.
Just take the first step to a Step Up event. That's the first thing that you need to do. Take somebody with you if you're really lacking in confidence. Take a friend, take a colleague, and sit somewhere in the room where there are already people and there are just spare chairs, and say, do you mind if I sit here? Because you never know who you are going to be sat opposite. And in terms of questions, they will say, hey, what's your name and what's your current job role? And that already opens up that conversation. So just start. And I know that sounds so simple to say if you lack confidence, but if you're going to the event and you're sitting in a room opposite people who you don't know, that's already a massive step that is going to help.
Sean and then Mabila. So Sean, for you, it was having relocated, that would be really relevant.
Yeah, so I'm going to say this in the best way and hope it comes across in the right way. But for me, who was trying to make that first leadership impression in my school, if I had a problem, if I had something that I was really dealing with and I couldn't really perhaps be really open about it in school, I could just sort of have this voice in my head go, remember, these people don't work with you. So I know that sounds, not the best way, but honestly, I think this really worked well for me, because I thought, well, here's where I ask those questions. Here's where I speak to those people who have been in the situation which I am, and where I'm first trying to make out this really good impression of myself when it comes to something like whole school CPD, or trying to deliver this session with teachers who are much more experienced than I am. I can ask so many questions, and I can be reassured that this is a network which is going to, not judge, where I currently am at the moment in my school, but they're going to give me so much advice, and it's going to be honest as well, and it's separate from my school, and it's not always needed, but I think sometimes it can help. Sometimes it can help to have that separation between what you're currently doing in your team, in your school, and then have some people outside of it you can speak to as well. Elaine, I think you coined this phrase so well, and it was, leaders need places to go to, and those leadership days were where I could go to. Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Sean. Mobina?
So you're speaking to somebody who is a complete introvert and would make every excuse not to go to a social event, because it's a bit overwhelming sometimes to go and meet all these educators. But I would absolutely echo Joanna's point. Go along, please come along to one of our events, because you'll be welcomed. It feels different to other educational events that you go to, maybe to learn about TNL, etc. And in terms of conversations, ask the questions that you wouldn't want to ask anyone else, because you can walk away and you don't have to ever see them again. I remember asking Mark Pritchard in the room a conversation about some tricky line management stuff. Afterwards, I found out that he was a CEO of like 23 schools or something, and I didn't know at the time, and he was really lovely and helpful, and actually that's been an ongoing relationship I've kept professionally and I've continued to network with. So I think the first step is, as Joanna said, just come along to one of the events and you can see for yourself.
I think Nike put it really well. Just do it. In terms, also, I know when I've personally gone to events where I'm not 100% comfortable, my phone tends to come out. So I purposely don't have my phone in my hand at events so that I'm there and I'm able to engage. But I think the advice that's been given, definitely just come along to one of our events. There's always a welcome. And I think, and Maria said really well in terms of our events, there's our largest about 8 people, so it's small. Cozier event compared to some of the larger events that can happen where you can just be very lost. We are nearly out of time for our panel. However, I do have one last question that I'm going to pose to everybody. What's one tip that you would give to somebody aspiring to step up? I'll go alphabetical order. If I go alphabetical order, so I'll go Mabina, Nadira, Sean, Claudia, Joanna. So so you can have so Joanna, you've got a little bit of thinking time there. Mabina.
I think the one tip I would give is do come along to events. It's like going to a bookshop and talking to people about lots and lots of different educational things, and you walk away with like a little symposium of, oh, those are really interesting seeds of ideas that I can think about. And I've always found that really, really helpful in interviews, in conversations with other leaders.
Well, thank you. Nadira, your one tip.
My one tip, I've got so many, but my one tip is don't ever lose the confidence in yourself. And I know that's very different to Marina's come to Step Up. Do come to Step Up events because they're great for your confidence and they're great to learn loads of things and network. But as a leader, know your gut instinct and never, ever let anyone tear you down.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Sean?
My advice would be, we all have like our sort of immediate goals that we want to achieve. But if you are to attend one of Step Up's events, or you are going to go to a workshop or something, which sometimes you wouldn't necessarily go to. And the reason why I say this is because I would never thought that I would be working in all through provision. I didn't think that I would know so much about primary education. I didn't know that I would know people to turn to if there's a problem with like pastoral issues. But that just shows how great Step Up have been in terms of having so many different types of people speak. So my advice would be, you have your immediate goals, but sort of encourage yourself to go to events which you wouldn't necessarily go to, because it could really, really work well for you in the future.
Thank you, Sean. Claudia?
Very much quite resonating with everything that everyone said. I would say, with just one word, network. Go and network. Go and find different perspectives. It really opened my eyes when I started doing it. I was never, as I mentioned, the kind of person who would do that in the past, and I so regret it. So, even if you're thinking, if you're an aspiring leader and you're not planning to do it just yet, start networking, start connecting with people from different settings, different geographical areas, because there's so much that you will learn from them. Whether it's from their expertise or their personal stories, or mistakes that they may have done in the past that you could learn from without necessarily having to make them and going through that stress. Definitely network, and circling back on the previous question as well, if you're not confident to do that, maybe start engaging virtually with our community here at the Step Up Network. Have a look at blogs, articles, newsletter, break that barrier initially through consuming their content, so that you start connecting with people digitally, and then at some point, you will find that confidence. You will see that spark that will motivate you to go and attend one of those events for sure, because that's what happened to me.
Thank you, Claudia. And Joanna?
This is something we really champion at EdgePulse, and I know that it's mirrored in Step Up as well. Be authentic and be vulnerable, and don't be afraid to be authentic and be vulnerable. People can see it as a weakness, but it's not. It's your strength.
Brilliant. Thank you so much to all our panelists. It's been really nice to connect with all of you. I got met everybody in person. It's been really nice to reconnect today. Thank you so much. I think Adam's going to take you off the screen, and we're going to have Ben. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I think really nice all of these people who've attended our events. So the next part is Ben is going to take us through what's next for Step Up.
Yeah, first of all, thank you everyone for that panel. That was awesome, and it was lovely to see the range of different answers and how much we got through in that time, because I was a bit worried putting 40 minutes for a panel discussion with 5 people would where it would go. So this next part is very much looking forward. It's going to be quite brief as we go through, but Adam, if you could go on to the next slide, please. We started to think, as Elaine said at the beginning, what's next? What's next for Step Up? If we're honest, this year as an academic year, we pretty much tried to do just what we did in the first academic year. So we did very much the same sort of things. We did some virtual events, did some face-to-face events. The main difference was we changed the format of the virtual events. We changed the format of the face-to-face events. But we found that some things really worked and some things didn't work as well. So we realized what we couldn't just do is duplicate the same format in a different location each time. And what we did last year is the way we sort of ran the organization behind the scenes is we sort of had 2 elements of it. We had sort of our networking work, so our work about connecting leaders, and all of the behind the scenes work that we wanted to do. And that's what we're going to return to. We're calling it returning to the roots of being a network, because in some cases with our wonderful events, and they are brilliant, and I do really enjoy going to them, sometimes it can feel like you're running an events company rather than running a network because of how much time they take up. So there's going to be 2 elements next year. We're going to look at our networking work and our social enterprise work, because as Elaine said at the beginning, we are a registered community interest company in social enterprise. So the Step Up Network will be very much there for educators who want to step up, who are in the process of stepping up, or who have stepped up, or who just want a network for support. And then the social enterprise element will be doing a lot of our work around campaigning. So campaigning around our work of making leadership more inclusive and diverse, campaigning around recruitment, campaigning around leadership knowledge, and doing a lot of collaboration. So what you will see, and I'll talk about it in a moment, is that you will see some things called Step Up Network, some things called Step Up Educational Social Enterprise, but we are the same organisation, it's just slightly different fields of work. Adam, could you go on to the next slide for me, please? So there's going to be 3 key elements of the network element next year: membership, events, and coaching. I'm going to talk about events first because the events are very similar to what we currently do. So we are going to be offering face-to-face and virtual events. The main difference next year is going to be that in terms of our face-to-face events, we're going to change the format slightly. And also, what you will get is if you sign up as a member of the Step Up Network, you will get access to member-only virtual events known as coaching and community circles for a much more discounted rate than you can pay for things like coaching as well. So the events part, you'll see a number of virtual events, you'll see a number of face-to-face events. If you go to our Eventbrite, you will see I'm gradually starting to populate them. So I know we had a message in the chat about our next London event. We have got a London event next year. Unfortunately, it's not going to be till April 2026. But there'll be lots of other events as well. Membership is the key difference. So what we've done this year is we've often had lots of great people come to our events. Some people who we see at another event and some people we never see again. And that's absolutely fine. We know people are going to dip out in and out of a network as they see fit. But what we want to do is, like I say, is we want to have that core network. We want to have, who are those people that you can go and call upon or text or WhatsApp or LinkedIn message when you're having a difficult time? Who can you share successes with? Who can you openly be vulnerable with and talk about issues with? And that's what we want to create. So we have created a membership package for a range of different membership packages for people who are looking to join us. There is so like I said, there's 3 tiers. There's associate membership, core membership, and premium membership. We have got, I'm not going to go into too much detail now because we have got a specific membership webinar in a couple of weeks' time, which I'll put the details in the chat when Elaine is closing the event, that you can sign up for. It's free to join. It's half an hour and you can find out more information there. We have had a number of people already come forward who said they're interested in membership. I'll also put that in the chat as to how you can engage with us there. The 3 different tiers of membership, it basically just depends. The difference is the benefits you get. So if you get the associate membership, it's absolutely free. You're included in our mailing list and you get access to certain things, but it's quite limited. Then we have our core membership, which you'll pay a fee over the course of the year, whether you pay it monthly or pay it up front, and you will get discount codes for events and coaching and other programs, as well as bespoke support. The premium membership, it's a higher amount to pay, but it means you get access to all of the events and all of the coaching included. Okay, that's a very brief overview. I'll go in more detail about that at the membership webinar. Coaching is something that is a big difference. Now, coaching, I've had coaching for the last 2 years. It's been absolutely transformational for me. I'm now a coaching lead in my school. Coaching has become very much a buzzword. It seems like every week there is a new coach out there, and it's brilliant because it means that coaching has become more accessible. But we know that coaching can sometimes be expensive. We know coaching can sometimes be inaccessible. Sometimes you can't find the right coach. Sometimes people don't like coaching or they need mentoring instead. Coaching was something people shouted out for from the minute we launched Step Up, and it was something we didn't want to rush into. So we're creating very much a coaching culture in our network. So at all of our face-to-face events next year, there'll be a qualified coach there who will facilitate a coaching circle at the end of the event. Because what can happen sometimes is when you come to one of our events, you meet all these fantastic people, you learn all these fantastic things, but you do need someone to decompress and process all that learning with. I write loads of notes in my notebook when I go to these events, but sometimes I just think, right, I can't go and implement everything. I can't change everything. So what can I meaningfully change? So they're going to be the 3 key things that if you, as part of the Step Up Network, when you interact with us next year, you will sort of get. Adam, could you go on to the next slide, please? Okay, so we will share more details about our membership and our next steps. We'll share them in the chat. We'll put them in the bio of the LinkedIn. Adam, can I ask that you bring Elaine back in, please? So we'll put all that information out there so that you can join us and be on our journey. It's very different to last year. Last year, we ended our event and we were like, right, we've got these events lined up, go and get your tickets, but we don't want to rush anything. So one thing I'll say is keep an eye on our social media, keep an eye on our website, keep an eye on the YouTube, keep an eye on what we put out there, the Eventbrite in particular. That's where all the events are. I'll put the links in the chat so you can see them. Elaine, I just want to say a massive thank you for hosting this morning. You did an absolutely grand job, and just think 2 years ago I was in this room, this exact room with this banner, doing this as well. So thank you so much for doing that, in between also babysitting your niece as well.
Yeah, so my I'm down with my 3-year-old niece at the moment, who is currently engaged in Bluey. So that's why I've been. If anybody's noticed, why am I looking left at anybody who has toddlers will know exactly what I'm doing. So in terms of our next steps, as Ben has said, one of the things that we really would like to connect with. Adam, if you go to the next slide. So you can connect with us on Twitter or X, LinkedIn. We also have, I think it's Blue Sky, it's because obviously we do realize that a number of people are moving from Twitter, X to other platforms. On our YouTube channel, which this entire event will be available on our YouTube channel shortly, along with all of our previous other virtual events. On our website, and making sure that keep an eye on all of our socials. As Ben said, we will be putting out our plans for next year on our socials, and there is a meeting coming up. But what I would like to say is just thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for engaging with the network. If you're somebody who has something to say and would like to speak at future events, just please let us know. We want to be an organization that gives that voice to people who may not necessarily have a chance otherwise. As you heard from all of our panel, I want to say thank you to all of our panel, all of the people who have engaged with Step Up and have been successful in this journey. And here's to year 3. Most exciting yet. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Elaine. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your Saturday.